Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Today is the 24th of August, 2023. This is the day after the elections. I have predicted that by noon of the 24th of August, we'll have a clear idea how these Zimbabwe elections are going. And I believe we have that clear idea now. The results so far that have been projected, although they are still to be announced, show that Zanu PF is won about 141 out of the 210 parliamentary seats. Chamisa, CCC have won 69. This means Zanu PF has won about 69% of the parliamentary seats. And in the Senate, they'll get the same kind of majority too. The presidential results are not yet out, and I don't think they'll be out for a couple of days, officially at least. But I would not be surprised that Mnangagwa wins. The tragedy of our Zimbabwean election is that if the elections had been free, fair, and credible, there is no doubt at all that Zanu PF would be defeated. Somebody in 2008 projected that if the then Zanu PF candidate Robert Mugabe was contesting with a donkey, the donkey would win. I think that was meant to underline the desperation of the people for change. And yet, 2008 and ever since, Zanu PF has been winning. And the only rational reason for it is that the elections were not free, fair, and credible. And so we are back to where we started. Why is the opposition not addressing the problem of stopping the rigging of the election? That is what is at issue here. I've got tonight joining me Benjamin, and I think let's discuss that issue, Benjamin. Do you like to greet the listeners, Benjamin?
Hi, thank you for having me on the show. To our listeners, thank you for joining us, and good evening, good morning, wherever you are, or hopefully everybody slept. That I shouldn't say good day. Yeah. Oh well, it's been chaotic to say the least. Wow. Uh, Coming back to the elections. Yeah, it's rather sad, every 5 years we have to put ourselves through such agony and such pain, heartbreak, despair, and everything, that is not good for our bodies as well. So, the results are coming in. There's Well, it's hard to tell because there's so much information that is coming from left, right, and center. Some which is true, some which is from past elections. So it's pretty hard to know exactly which one is which. Is Triple C leading? Is it no longer leading? What has changed? It's just difficult to
Well,
know.
on that point, just to update you on that one, they are, I don't know whether you were aware of it, actually declaring the winners of the council elections and the parliamentary. Officially, they are supposed to be confirmed by ZEC. But I think the results that have got here are fairly accurate. So if you look at these ones here, Zimbabwe decides to 2023. Harare province, Zanu PF has got 6. Triple C has got 25 of the parliamentary seats there. And Bulawayo province, Zanu PF has failed to win even 1. Triple C has got 12. Matabeleland South, Zanu PF 10, Triple C 2. Matabeleland North, Zanu PF has got 7, Triple C has got 6. Midlands, Zanu PF has got, Midlands, let me get this right. Midlands, Zanu PF has got 22, and Triple C has got 6. Masvingo province, Zanu PF has got 23, and Triple C has got 2. One of them has been postponed. That's Gutu West, if I'm not mistaken. And Mashonaland Central, Zanu PF has got all the 18 seats. Triple C got nothing. Mashonaland East, 20. Triple C has got 3. Mashonaland West, Zanu PF has got 16. Triple C has got 6. Manicaland province, Zanu PF has got 19 and Triple C has got 7. So I think we can work on that. And according to my arithmetic, that gives Zanu PF 141, which is much the same way as in 2018. So I think on the parliamentary results, I agree on the presidential one, we still don't know. But I think on the parliamentary, those figures are not, probably would not be off the mark. So we discuss it on that basis.
Okay, sure, no problem. Yeah, it becomes very, very difficult, especially when you have to deal with the characters like the guys that are in Zanu PF, and you have to try and lead such characters whilst you are having a minority in parliament. It's a very daunting task. I don't believe they will be open-minded to say, if we suggest something that is well to do for the people, just because probably you are from, talking from one of the guys that we did not like from long back, or one of our arch enemies or arch rivals, it's going to be very difficult, to get anything passed in terms of, legislature and everything. And
yeah, but you're thinking of if Chamisa was to win, you mean?
If Chamisa was to win, that is if Zanu PF is to win and retain Emerson Mnangagwa, it's business as usual. So there's not much to talk about anyway. We are talking in terms of the opposition and what it would mean for Zimbabwe, basically. That is where we are driving at. But I personally don't see him, winning this election, because with the things that we are seeing on, social media and, the live reports that are happening, it doesn't look good. Already you can see there's so much irregularities that, even in the Mugabe era, we never saw such things. I think Zanu PF on their part, they were not very well prepared. And now, because of that, they are having to rush some of the decisions that they have to make, and which is causing them, to show that this is exactly what they've been doing for a very long time. And I was listening to an address that the Triple C also made, that they are very much aware of what is going on. But from what the spokesperson said earlier, they said they are willing to soldier on, but will make these, abnormalities known. I don't know, known to ZEC or whoever. I'm not sure.
Well,
But
I think we need to discount that with the contempt it really rightly deserves. Triple C have been warned that these elections will be flawed. Without reforms, Zanu PF will rig these elections. And Chamisa himself is on record saying they've plugged all the Zanu PF vote rigging loopholes. So you cannot have it both ways. You claim on one end that you're going to win these elections, and you've got strategies of winning rigged elections. So you cannot then turn around and say, "Oh, the elections were rigged." Well, you claim that you had the solutions. So you cannot have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So I think we have to go with what they say themselves. They had the opportunity to implement some of these democratic reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging them, and they never did because they were so confident that they would win rigged elections. So I think the issue of Triple C claiming that the elections were rigged is something that Zimbabweans must now dismiss with the contempt it rightly deserves.
Yes, I agree with you. To say and to do is totally different. And I think, as you can see how it's panning out on the ground, it shows that both were not very prepared. In terms of Zanu PF, they were not very prepared of how they were going to go about their rigging, which for me is showing cracks. Secondly, I'm looking at how Chamisa is responding to the irregularities or the riggings that are happening. He is kind of like quenching, the fiery darts in one spot and then numerous spots. I mean, let's look at it. We've got 12,000 polling stations, and they are covering so much, and I don't think they are covering a majority of them. That is the truth. Most of them are being covered by individuals that are trying to protect their own vote. In terms of agents, I don't think they have enough agents to cover up, and this is where Zanu PF is actually using. Yes, they are getting caught in different places, but I mean, this is what is happening. And I don't think to claim to say they have strategies to counter everything. No, certainly not. They don't have. But they are actually trying. This is what I think. And is it good enough? I don't think so.
Well, I think in this particular case, we cannot pretend they are trying. They are not trying. I think that must be emphasized. They had the opportunity to implement the democratic reforms during the GNU, the golden opportunity to do so. They failed to implement even one in 5 years. How can we say they were trying? So I think on that point, we can settle that one, that in this case here, and this is again a point that must be emphasized, that Triple C leaders themselves, the likes of Tendai Biti, David Coulthard, they have known all along that without reforms, participating in these elections is just a waste of time. That point must be understood by anyone who is really taking Zimbabwean politics serious with the seriousness it deserves. And therefore, then one has got to ask the question is, so why is the opposition keep on participating? And the reason for it was given by actually David Coulthard in his book. This was far back before the 2018 elections, where he admitted that the 2013 elections were so flawed that the only logical step would have been to stop participating, but they could not stop because of greed. That is a historic fact that I think we should not try to gloss over. So we have got here a situation where CCC are participating in these elections, knowing fully well that they will lose them. But they cannot go to the people there and say, oh, we are participating out of greed. So they've got to give a feeble excuse, i.e., we've plugged all the vote rigging holes. And then now it turns out they haven't. But let's go to another point here. Can you seriously expect, for instance, let's take the extreme case, which I don't think it is likely to be the outcome, but let's work on it. At the present moment, we already are clear that Zanu PF has got over 2/3 majority in parliament and will have 2/3 majority in the Senate. If Chamisa was to win the presidency, can that administration survive?
Yeah, so this is what I was saying earlier. I was saying it's difficult, especially when you're working with guys from Zanu PF. The Zanu PF people that I know would make I don't think they would be very much willing to cooperate. I don't think any meaningful change or administrative change or meaningful legislature would be changed to help the people of Zimbabwe or to try and make life better for any Zimbabwean. I don't think so. It's like it's difficult to say with Zimbabwe right now with the way things are, unless they decide to play ball. But of which, like you said, having Zanu PF in the mix makes it very difficult. Hopefully, it will be more of like how it was during the GNU, where there was a little bit of cooperation from both sides, and at least some things got achieved in terms of financial stability, economical wise. At least people had had a little bit of certainty as to you get up in the morning, you're doing A, B, C, D, and unlike now where you get up in the morning and you really don't know what is going on. So I think it's going to be very difficult for Chamisa to handle.
I don't think that administration would ever work. You're looking at, this is not a country like Britain or any of these other democratic nations where the civil service is apolitical. All the other state institutions, the judiciary, the security, the police, and so forth, they are apolitical. In Zimbabwe, these bodies have been politicized. There are Zanu PF in all but name. And to expect an opposition with the ruling party Zanu PF with 2/3 majority in parliament and in the Senate can achieve anything, I think it's being naive. This is just Chamisa. He is so focused on him becoming president to the point of being unbelievably naive, as much as Zanu PF members themselves, because I think from the voting trend that was shown this year and also in 2018, clearly shows that Zanu PF members themselves do not like Mnangagwa. Because this year, although I haven't seen the total vote count, but I think in 2018, you'll find the Zanu PF MPs received 70% of the vote. And yet Mnangagwa only managed to scrap in with 50.8% of the vote. In other words, many of the voters voted for a Zanu PF MP, but when it came to the opposition, they voted for somebody else instead of the Zanu PF candidate. So from this year's results, probably is the same thing. But when it comes to exercising power, they are not going to let the opposition really dictate to them. We have got to remember that these are hardcore Zanu PF people who believe that Zanu PF have got a divine right to rule the country. So what we are having here is just a circus. I think personally, the likely result is if Mnangagwa does not win the first round outright, then there will be a runoff. And during the runoff, do you seriously think Chamisa would win?
I think it will get very messy. And I don't think that we are going to get to a situation of a runoff. I think this election, with the amount of evidence that is there of, foul play, so many technicalities, illegalities that are there, it will be a shame, even on SADC's behalf, to stand up and actually pronounce this free and fair. Whatever the graph or the measuring stick that they are going to use to measure Zimbabwe, any other country in SADC can do exactly the same, and they will not be able to say anything going forward. So I think they know the risks that are involved, because certainly, Mnangagwa and company are not really doing themselves justice in terms of their art of rigging. Mugabe perfected it for them. All they just needed was follow, but they are not following in the footsteps that the master had set. This is what I think. They are doing it right in front of observers, and they're not even bothering to hide it.
Well, so I would agree with you there. Maybe they could have rigged it a bit better. But I think what the rigging that has taken place so far is no different from what happened in the past, other than the failure to produce the ballots on time. But that is made up for by extending the voting time. I listened to an interview of one of the SADC election observers, and they were saying, yes, they were disappointed that the ballots were not at the polling stations on time, but yes, extended the voting time. So, I think on that score alone, I think SADC will find it very difficult to condemn these elections. But there are other issues. But what we've got to accept with the other issues, like the failure to produce a verified voters' roll, some of the violence and so forth, those have happened in the past. And SADC has endorsed those elections as substantially free, fair, and credible. Yes, what I think would be the problem, personally, would be if there was to be a runoff, because I think during the runoff, Mnangagwa then will let his dogs loose off the leash. And I think you will see a lot of violence to just whip the electorate and remind them that Zanu PF is not going to tolerate another rejection of the party.
What I figured out about Zanu PF and what I now honestly believe, well, personally, I think the G40 were the brains of this whole outfit, and the La Costa team were the muscle. What I mean is, the way they used to rig elections, like we are saying, was a little bit smarter. It wasn't as messy as the way it is now, where you can blatantly see what is going on. Right now, you can see what is going on. I mean,
yeah, but other than the ballots, what else can you say they were blatantly rigging the elections?
I mean, now you've got the guys from FAS that are sitting right outside the polling station, and they are writing on, foolishly you put your banner there, you put your emblem there, right? Your logo to say Zanu PF, and you say exit poll, and yet people are going in there before they go. I mean, if you are taking a survey, let's look. You get on, you buy a ticket, an airline ticket. You want to go maybe from Zimbabwe, from Harare to South Africa. You only get a survey when you have used the service, right? Now, for Zanu PF, it's you get to do the survey before you. It shows, and a survey does it need for you to have your ID number taken? No, I don't think so. And this is being done on your way there. Already, we're looking at the simple mind of the person in the rural areas. You've already intimidated them to think that for sure you've got their details now. Now, if they don't go and vote for Zanu, they are going to lose their livelihood. This is what it amounts to.
Well, I think in that regard, you could say with the 2008.
For you and me, it's okay. Because me and you would understand, this guy is just messing around. When I get into there is absolutely no way you're going to find me out. Right? But then the person in the rural areas will never know.
Well, I think on that point, what I'm trying to emphasize to you is that is just, to me, is I wouldn't say these elections would be condemned on the basis of that. For the simple reason that there is a lot worse things that are happening, that has been happening before. Take, for instance, that issue that your vote is no longer your secret, which is the essence of that action. Yeah. The truth of the matter is increasing the number of polling stations from 10 per constituency in 2008 to now over 60. And then to make it a polling station-based voters' roll. That has had more impact than somebody sitting outside and keeping a register of who has gone in. Because that alone has managed to reduce the number of people going into a polling station to vote from to about 500 or so per polling station. And in this 10 election, in these elections that happened yesterday, the number of people who were voting was about, on average, maybe about 400 per polling station. So if, particularly in the rural areas, where the 400 will be coming from the neighboring villages, their own agent, even if he didn't set up a table, he will be able to see who went in and know them by face and by name and then know whether that person is a Zanu PF member or not. And so by the time the election results come out, take for instance 400 voted, and then you find 300 voted for Zanu PF and 100 voted for the opposition. That official will be able to tell which of the 400 voted for Zanu PF and which of the 100 did not vote for Zanu PF. So that point is was already there. That's all I'm trying to say. The main problem here is that the vote rigging has been there. And I think the other one, which you referred to earlier on, but which the observers will not be aware of, is the issue of failure to have election agencies. In 2018, Chamisa refused to admit that he didn't have election agencies in all polling stations, but then later on, in fact, later this year, he admitted that he didn't have polling station agencies in 544 polling stations. And that has gives Zanu PF a lot of latitude to rig the elections, because they can resubmit, hold their V11 form to see how their candidate is getting on, and then adjust the V11 to make sure that their candidate goes across the line. But the observers will not know that. So I think in terms of the election observers, I would not put it beyond SADC for them to say these elections were free, fair, and credible. Because in terms of change compared to 2018, what is radically changed, I can't see it. That's what I'm saying.
I would say, no, there is no change, but it's become a little messy, and it's become too evident. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going. They may be small, but the irregularities are so much there. And the good thing now is a lot of these things are being sort of like televised, and people can see what is going on. Right? So I don't think there's an excuse. I'm looking at it in terms of broad, the broad picture. We're looking at this. SADC is supposed to, if it endorses Zimbabwean elections as free and fair, that is a measuring stick that they have set for the other counterparts, right? AU, if they are to say they were free and fair, what is to stop any other country? And we know in Africa these days, it's become the land of the coups, and everybody is just toppling the other one. Who are you going to be able to stop them? Already their power is limited. Look at what Niger did. They said, if it's you, do not even attempt to even speak to us. Right? So to them, it's already showing that, if we continue going on to this is exactly what is going to be. They're going to be, just a body. They're just there. So I think they're going to really seriously think about this election. Is this the pace that we want to set for any other country that that fall under our jurisdiction? I don't think so.
Well, in this case, we have got to come back to that issue of what has Zimbabweans themselves done about this. The answer is nothing, if anything at all. If you look at Chamisa's statements, even days before the election, he was insisting that even disregarding all the vote rigging shenanigans, the violence, the failure to produce a verified voters roll, etc., CCC is going to win these elections. When you keep saying that, what do you expect the outsiders to do? That is the reality that we've got to deal with. You yourself are saying, don't worry about it. I'm going to win these elections, regardless of all these things. What do you expect the outsiders to do?
on that point, I have to agree with you 100%. Like I was saying, I was listening to one of their spokesperson, not Fadzai Mahiri, um, another brother. He was saying exactly, the opposite of whatever. I don't know why he was saying. He says, yeah, that there's a lot of irregularities that are going, but we will still go ahead and we will still win big. I mean, that day is confusing to even SADC itself to say, okay, do we sit back and let it play out, or should we nullify it at the end, regardless of whoever wins? Because at some point he says the results of these elections should be nullified. Wait a moment. You are saying you're winning big, and are you also calling out for them to be nullified? For me, that day is confusion. So I don't think Triple C is doing themselves any justice, especially given the amount of the irregularities right now, they are more than a bucket full. From pre the election itself, it was just a big mess. So I really
Well,
I really don't know.
on that point, I think we need to re-emphasize that the opposition, Triple C and the rest of the opposition, are participating in these elections out of greed. That we cannot run away from. Like David Coulthard is acknowledging in this text that is just going up across the page. They participated, they knew the election process in 2013. David Coulthard was writing in this book. The process was so flawed, so illegal, that the only logical step was to withdraw, which would have compelled SADC to hold Zanu PF to account. But such was the distrust between MDCT and MDCN that neither could withdraw, for fear the other would participate and win the seats. So it was for the sake of the seats that they continued participating. They knew that by participating, you are giving the process credibility. And in this particular case, are giving Zanu PF legitimacy. And they've been continuing to do this because of the same issue. And I think that point, Zimbabweans have got to open their eyes and wake up to that reality. We cannot continue to pretend that Triple C are doing us a favor in participating in these flawed elections. They're not. They're doing it out of greed. Other small parties are doing it because they also are eyeing these Pollard frisbees that are on offer. They're willing to pay their 20,000 deposit nomination fees for the presidential rat race, because they know if at the end of it they join Pollard, they get a 40,000 vehicle plus many other perks. And besides, during the presidential race itself, they've enjoyed a lot of limelight. And some of them, they're hoping from now on, they will refer themselves as Zanu Zimbabwe presidential candidate, in their CV. So, that cannot be denied. But what we are looking at here is this price to the nation. We cannot keep on participating in flawed elections. And as we all know, in fact, I don't know, I'm sure you've seen a few videos already. Triple C are already starting their usual game of claiming that the elections were rigged. Although all along they'd been saying they'd plugged all the holes to stop Zanu PF rigging. So we have got this endless cycle where they participate out of greed to cover up for their greed. They claim that they've strategies of winning rigged elections. And then when the elections are done and they realize they've lost, they suddenly flip over again and start saying, oh, the elections were rigged. So we keep going back and forth over the same issue. And we need to be smart enough to realize, no, CCC are the ones who are keep participating to give Zanu PF legitimacy. That is the point. And I think that point, Zimbabweans, I hope, as the penny drops, the reality sinks in of another 5 years of Zanu PF dictatorship. Zimbabweans will wake up to that reality. That is my hope, Benjamin.
Yes, I also share the same vision that at least one day all this has to just come to an end. I'm sure, we have gone around in circles. At some point, we have to stop before we get ourselves so dizzy. It's just a mess. I mean, from the day from opening till the end of this whole thing, you could just see this. This is exactly what we were trying to refer to all these past months, that this is exactly what Zanu PF is capable of. They will never be able to hold a free and fair election, and unfortunately CCC is not capable of actually plugging every hole, because obviously there's so many reasons, not just financial reasons, but it's hard to know what exactly the other person is thinking every time and gets it right. It's very difficult, and unfortunately, like you said, we are on the verge of another 5 years of this whole same shenanigan, and it's just a mess. It's going to be very stressful. Well, it's actually stressful now, but then we will have to endure it for the next 5 years. Unfortunately, very long time. But hopefully, within the 5 years, we start strategizing now and calling for reforms even the day after, because it's pointless to cry foul, like you said now, because I mean we were the ones that we claiming so loud that we've got this in the bag and there's nothing. They would ask you, but you were claiming. What happened? So I think now is the time where we start focusing on the real job. This whole participating is not the job. That is the job when everything is free and fair. I'm sure, even like you said, if it's free and fair, you can put a donkey right there. That donkey will be crowned the very next day, because it'll be a one-way race, and you would win very, very big. I believe Chamisa's got the capabilities of winning very big, but not under such a political environment. That's what I think.
I think in this particular case, people must realize here that what Chamisa actually and his MDC friends have been selling the people is a falsehood. The idea that you can win rigged elections is itself a nonsensical oxymoron. Why would you want to give up your right to free, fair, and credible elections? Because you believe you can win rigged elections. That is nonsensical. Surely your emphasis should be, we want free, fair, and credible elections. And this issue of trying to win rigged elections, particularly when this has been going on for the last 43 years and Zanu PF keeps coming, rigging them. That is insanity. We can't keep on this insanity. But I think here, which is the other point I'm trying to emphasize here, people must realize that it is not that the opposition Chamisa and company have been participating in these elections, and they were foolishly thinking they could win rigged elections. They know they were not winning these rigged elections. They were participating knowing fully well that they will lose them. But they were after what Zanu PF is offering as bait for them to participate. That is where people must be smart enough to realize what's going on here. Chamisa, even now, if he loses these elections, he's not regretting it. He was campaigning throughout this campaign that I'll create the position of the leader of the opposition party, and that will entitle whoever it is to a parliamentary seat and cabinet, ministerial pecs, comparable to what you have got like in a country like here, UK. And now that it's almost certain he will lose these elections, you'll be expecting that Mnangagwa will create that position for him. So you'll be very comfortable. You know, you'll be now a leader of the opposition party in parliament and entitled to a ministerial car and benefits and so forth. Meanwhile, we are stuck with 5 years of this tyrannical, corrupt, and utterly useless Zanu PF dictatorship. Zimbabwe is a failed state because we failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections. That is at the heart of our problem. And we can't keep on going round and round in circles just because the opposition is benefiting from it. They pretend they will win rigged elections. And we are sold to give up our right to free, fair, and credible elections on that basis. It's ridiculous. And I think the people of Zimbabwe must now hold the opposition to account. They are selling out. They've sold out in the past, and they've sold out again in these elections. Chamisa must account for why he said he was plugging all the holes for rigged elections and then find what he did not. That is what people of Zimbabwe should look at now. These elections have been another wasted opportunity, and no nation can afford that. I don't know whether you want to have your last remarks there, Ben, then we'll close.
Yeah, it's a sad reality, and unfortunately, it's one that we have to endure. If it's, I mean, like it's a long shot for him to win. I personally don't see Zanu PF getting out of the picture, especially when they have got their grip on every aspect of these elections, including Zimbabwe as a whole. I mean, the way they are doing about this just shows you how much power they have, and they just don't care whether you see it or not, because they know that they have an opposition that is very much willing to participate, and other presidential candidates that are willing to endorse them as winners. Funny enough, there was one guy that actually forgot to vote for himself as a presidential candidate, but his name is there. So it's weird. Yeah, but this is what we need. We have to start thinking for ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. This is not something that we should continuously do. I mean, we have been doing this for a very long time, and I'm expecting that at least we should be learning from our experience. Once bitten, twice shy. We cannot continuously keep going this year and setting ourselves for heartaches and downfalls. We need to do it the proper way, and the proper way is reforms first. Whether we have to demand for them, it's our right to have those reforms, and it's our right to have a meaningful say in the governance of our country. Yes, but we have to decide how we are going to build it together, not one person dictating to us. That's my final closing. And thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. My last closing remarks would be people must realize here that after 43 years now and counting, we are still failing to hold free, fair, and credible elections. That is a damning testimonial on us all as a nation. We have given up the right to free, fair, and credible elections because people like Chamisa sold us this dummy that we could win rigged elections. That is a nonsense. The right to free, fair, and credible election is at the heart of good governance. And that is what we should be focusing on. And we should also remember here that the opposition, MDC, and now CCC, were elected. Their principal purpose was to implement the democratic changes that we needed to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. That is where the name Movement for Democratic Change comes from. In 23 years, they failed to implement even one reform. And now they are the ones participating in flawed elections, giving Zanu PF legitimacy in return for a few gravy train seats. That is the situation we are in. And we cannot afford to keep on tolerating it. And I really hope with this election, the penny will finally drop. People will wake up and open their eyes and realize what's going on here. That Chamisa and company have been running with the powerful hair while hunting with the Zanu PF hounds. That is the reality. And we are going to pay for it for the next 5 years. I do not expect SADC, to be quite honest, to give any different verdict than they gave in 2018. So if SADC confirms Zanu PF as the winner, that is the sad, tragic reality that we have to face. Another 5 years of this mediocre, corrupt, incompetent government. Zimbabwe is a failed state, and another 5 years of this is depressing. But that's where we are. At least we should learn what we did wrong this time. With that, thank you very much, Benjamin, again. And to the listeners, thank you very much for listening, and good night.
Thank you. Good night.